Hello, nerds! Thank you for joining me here on Nerd News Clips. This is the second channel. This is the place for all of the short-form content as well as the individual sections and just generally speaking smaller things. If you are into the longer form content, youtube.com/generallynerdy is the place to go see that. With that out of the way, let's get into this. So, our first news section, as always, is music, and I'm gonna tell you right now, this is the biggest one. We have the most music news today. So we're gonna come out the gate with some craziness. First things, we have follow-ups to deal with, and this one we only kind of mentioned in passing, so it's only technically a follow-up. It's not really something we've been actively keeping tabs on, because this is more interpersonal rather than actual news, but this time it did borderline on actual news, so we're going to talk about it, and it's a follow-up. Anyway, I'm burying the lead here. What the hell are we talking about? Fozzy, lead singer, Chris Jericho, also WWE superstar, AEW superstar, wrestling guy in general, Chris Jericho, has come out and finally admitted what Sebastian Bach has been accusing him of for over a year at this point, and that is that he uses backing tracks for his vocals. I didn't read the full article. I just read that part because it very well could be that the entire band uses backing tracks the way some of these quotes were coming at us. So I was never a big Fozzy fan to begin with, and this definitely doesn't help. Jericho's argument is, well, everyone uses backing tracks. Well, I've been part of this scene for a long time. I've been part of the aggressive music stuff for quite some time. And yes, there are a few bands that do use backing tracks, but most of those bands are not really big bands. Most of those bands are not very well-known bands. Most of those bands are trying to get to that level of stardom, but in order to get to that level of stardom, you have to put on a show. Go figure. And part of putting on a show is soul and emotion and feeling. And if you record all of your parts beforehand, that takes out all of the show and emotion and feeling. Well, at least some of the emotion and feeling anyway. So just, if you want to be a pop star, then go be a pop star. But if you're trying to be a metal band, that's not the way you do it. Anyway, that's my little soapbox. We're going to step down for a moment at least and move along in the follow-up section. Next, we're talking about Megadeth. This one was real quick. Was in an interview Dave Mustaine did on Sirius XM Liquid Metal with Mr. Jose Mangan. He announced who was actually the bass player that was recorded for the new record. Now, the bass player on the new record is not going to be the bass player that they are touring with. That is somebody else. But on this new record, we have Steve DiGiorgio from Testament playing bass. I'm super not big on the 80s and into the early 90s scene for the thrash stuff. Generally speaking, if we're going that old, my tastes are pretty limited when it comes to thrash. Anthrax, Metallica, sure, maybe a little bit of Slayer and Pantera, and that's about it. Otherwise, we're going either heavier or poppier as far as my musical taste it goes. So Testament is not exactly a band that's really actively on my radar. So I'm told that this is an amazing thing. So sure, be happy about that. But unfortunately, I know, hand you my metalhead card, I'm sorry. But yeah, just not a thing that really dinged with me. I thought it was pretty interesting that they got DiGiorgio because I do know at least a little bit of his history in the scene, but just generally speaking, okay, sure, fine, whatever. Moving on. Our other follow-up has to do with that Ramstein thing that we've been keeping tabs on. I'm pretty sure this is related to the new record Zeit. But man, go check out their Instagram. There is some craziness happening over there. It looks like the next single is going to be called Zikzak. Still have yet to listen to the first single because, again, reaction videos are a thing that I like to do, and yeah, I'm gonna do what I promise. Anyway, yeah, so Zikzak, this is not an official announcement of new music, which is why it's not in the new music section, but it is something. So, that being said, go check out the Ramstein Instagram page, and let's move into, speaking of new music. The new music section is pretty full of some pretty awesomeness. First up, Clutch has released a new single from their forthcoming record, which still has no release date or title, but this song does have a title, and it is Red Alert Boss Metal Zone. There's a really funny story behind this. Neil Fallon is the vocalist for Clutch, and he is notorious for writing nonsense lyrics. Go see the record or the song off the last record, Book of Bad Decisions, about how to make crab cakes, or go listen to Space Grass and realize that there's really no meaning to any of those lyrics. They're just things that rhyme, which normally I'm against, but the way Neil does it, it's pretty awesome. Anyway, so this Boss Metal Zone song, the Red Alert, is kind of based on a space opera, but also kind of based on an effects pedal for a guitar. Yeah, just really crazy. I have yet to listen to this one as well, but that's more out of lack of time than trying to do a million reaction videos, though I am trying to do a million reaction videos. But we're moving right along. We have another new music announcement, and that comes from Five Finger Death Punch. Five Finger Death Punch have finished the recording process for their 9th studio album, which means there is post-production to do, and then marketing, and so on and so forth. So probably by the end of this year, though a release date, as far as I have been able to find so far, does not exist, nor again does an album title yet. So as those things happen, we will keep you informed, but that's what we got. So we're moving on. More new music. This one's a lot of fun. This one I legitimately have listened to a few times, actually. Speaking of Megadeth, Megadeth is going to be, I think, in just about all of our subsections for music this week. But speaking of Megadeth, Lamb of God has teamed up with their tour partners, multiple times over tour partners, Megadeth, and covered their song Wake Up Dead from, it was their second studio record, I believe. I don't remember. It's not in the notes, but either way, the name of the song is Wake Up Dead. And we did talk about this briefly on the live stream on Friday, but I feel like it definitely is worth noting in a proper episode, since these have a higher view count, that this is definitely a song to go check out. Again, not the biggest old school thrash dude, but I am a really big Lamb of God fan, and this is a very nice marriage of those two sounds. It is not just Dave Mustaine featured on a Lamb of God track, nor is it what I was initially led to believe, a Lamb of God track featuring the dudes in Megadeth. This is a legitimate collaboration between all of the guys in Megadeth, all of the permanent members of Megadeth anyway, and all of the guys in Lamb of God, and it's really fun. Go check it out. It's pretty awesome. Moving on, we do have more new music. This one is could have been in the movies section, actually, but it is specifically about the soundtrack to the new Dethklok movie. Yes, they are still working on that new Dethklok movie that was announced last year, and that being said, we are going to be getting new music from Dethklok. Drummer Gene Hoglan has definitely talked about it in recent interviews, has also implied the possibility of a new tour going forward to promote said new music. This is supposedly going to be the final chapter of the Dethklok story, but I'm game. I'm all for this. This is going to be amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. That is what we have for new music, though. we do have some tour news to get out of the way, and we're not going quite so heavy this time. So in touring, we have first up is Everclear. Everclear is going out on tour with Fastball and the Nixons, so a little bit of 90s alt-punk for you. This tour starts June 9th in Emmet, Idaho. It runs through September 7th in Henderson, Nevada. There was not yet tickets on sale as of recording this, though potentially as of posting this, that could change. Either way, though, Everclear going on tour. Never got to see him when I wanted to as a kid, so definitely going to be catching this one. Moving on, our other tour that we're touching on for this episode is Head PE. Really random. This is just because of the name of the tour. The name of the tour is the New Metal Madness Tour. Head PE, Crazy Town, Adema, and FLAW. All bands I have seen live, regrettably in some cases, but still, whatever. This tour starts July 6th in Denver, Colorado, runs through July 30th in Reedley, California. Relatively short tour, but they do hit a lot of different places, so if you are interested in the new metals, then you can go check the link in the description for your tickets. That is all we have for tour news. It looks like next episode we will have quite a few more tours to talk about, but that is only if some of these announcements actually happen. So that brings us into the news section of the music news section. So for regular old news, we're going to touch ever so briefly on the Grammys, and this is honestly just to reaffirm the reason why we're no longer covering the Grammys on this show. The founders of the Metal Blade Records label, as well as Joey Jordison, as well as Metal Church's vocalist, as well as a bunch of other heavy hitters on the heavier side of music, were completely snubbed as far as the telecast was concerned. Few of them did make it into the website announcement on the in memorandum, but the important part of the Grammys is what they broadcast, and they didn't even reference these people who passed this. Alexi Lieho, so many great players and musicians. They did, though, include Taylor Hawkins, so there's at least that, being as he is the most recent passing, but I feel like to leave out somebody like Joey Jordison, who literally has left his imprint on so many multiple dozens of bands, I feel like is a major oversight and is kind of a snub for people who are into more aggressive styles of music. So that being said, that's why we don't cover the Grammys. That's why I probably, we might mention them in passing, just because, when people like Dream Theater win Grammys, that's fun. Or when Mastodon, who always deserves to win the Grammy because they are some of the greatest songwriters in heavy music, or in music in general, then yeah, we'll probably touch on that, but it'll be brief, and this is the last we're going to spend any significant time on this subject. Moving on, we have a fantastic announcement. Danny Elfman has announced the replacement for his guitar player. The guitar player he had to replace was Robin Finck. Robin Finck had a previous engagement with Nine Inch Nails. Apparently that has gotten in the way of the rescheduled Coachella Festival. There are 2 Coachella festivals happening this year. Danny Elfman is going to be playing at both of them, and the replacement for Robin Finck is going to be Wes Borland. So Danny Elfman is going to be sharing the stage with Wes Borland. Not just Wes Borland, but Josh Freese on drums, Stu Brooks on bass, and Nili Brosh on the other guitar. And with Freese and Borland and Elfman on stage together, I really wish I could go to Coachella. I never thought I would say these words, but I really wish I could go to Coachella. I really hope that there is some amazing video coverage of this, just because those are 3 incredible musicians. And so if you have an opportunity to see them and you don't have to pay $500 for a ticket, then absolutely do this. Even if you do have the money and you can pay $500 for a ticket, then absolutely absolutely go see this. But if you're poor like me, then, you're going to have to wait for the video to come out later. That being said, that is what we have for the music section for this week, nerds. We do have a suggestion this time around. This one's going a little deeper and slightly more obscure, but it's absolutely worth a listen. This week in music suggestions, we're talking about Battle of Mice is the name of the band. The name of the album is A Day of Nights. This is from New Rot Records. It is actually a collaboration between Made Out of Babies, some major players from the Made Out of Babies camp, as well as from Neurosis. And I think there's a couple other New Rot artists involved in this as well, but primarily it's those two. And if you like the, quote, post-hardcore sound of Made Out of Babies and also the, quote, post-metal sound of Neurosis, then this is an amazing amalgamation of those two sounds. And just fantastic. Julie Christmas's vocals are incredible. The layering that you get from the dudes in Neurosis, and oh my god, this is honestly one of my favorite offbeat records ever. So absolutely worth a listen. Go listen to A Day of Nights from Battle of Mice. Once again, this has been just a brief segment from the larger episode that has been posted over on the main channel, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Go over there for the long form content, or just subscribe here if you want it in bite-sized chunks. Thank you very much for joining me, nerds. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.